Welcome to Landco. We normally don't talk about our views on economic trends for all kinds of different reasons, but we do look closely at economic trends, and we wanted to share with you some of the different thinking that goes into how we look at the trends. So one thing that, again, leading from another particular series we talk about it's neither good nor bad, and in this particular case the same thing applies. A good economy, a bad economy, it depends in a lot of cases what we are looking at. So moving through it, I'll give you some framework on what we think about when we're looking at different metrics. And let's start with the interest rate. Interest rates are often talked about amongst our friends and in every circle, and they are what they are and they will be what they will be, but the one question that comes up is which direction are they going to go? And in our particular case, we think in terms of why it is they will go up. In this case, consumerism. Consumerism is really more of a function of income, which is a function of jobs. We're leading into that next, but effectively our answer to the question is how do we view the jobs picture? So speaking about jobs, job growth can't be looked at in a vacuum. It's often talked about in terms of the unemployment figures that are bandied about in the various different political pitches and newspaper articles we read. But we think it's necessary to go a bit deeper than that and take a closer look at the percentage of employed people in the marketplace and where that is today versus where it's been in the past. That gives us a pretty good indication about what is happening in the overall ability for the American public to generate dollars that will be used in consumption. And that can have a very dramatic effect on interest rates one way or the other. Thirdly, the gross domestic product is something that can be looked at in lots of different contexts. I think generally it's looked at in a way to tell us as a country what we're growing, what rate our production is growing at. And most recently we've heard claims of the possibilities of getting us into the 4% category. Maybe that can happen. I don't think it's happened many years for many decades, but in any event, the key factor there is why would it grow at a rate of 4%? And it's important, we think, to look at things like the national deficit and ask ourselves the question, how much of that growth is actually coming from organic versus what's being stimulated? And again, using our words, in our view, stimulated is really coming from borrowed money, which would be accounting for the gap that is between what we spend and what we actually garner from our taxpayers. Gross domestic product. Tax policy is something to keep a close eye on. As we all know, real estate has been very favored by tax policy with interest rate deductions and the ability to deduct expenses like depreciation, which are non-cash expenses. Also the favorable capital gain treatment on transactions that are sold in the long term. Those policies, if altered, changed in any direction, will affect the value of real estate. We saw that happen again or once before in the S&L crisis in '86 when radical tax policy really did destabilize a lot of real estate. So on the topic of economic trends, we would be looking probably at very little interest rate growth for some time. If we move toward the concept of decreasing the deficit or more toward balanced budget, we're probably also talking about a lot of inflation, which would be stemmed from tax policy change. That having, if that occurs for whatever reason, we can definitely depend on a movement in a downward direction in real estate values. Our conclusion is invest with low leverage and enter into real estate at below retail values today. Thank you.